in the picture.
All right. We are live. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of VertiMax VIVE. I am Dan McDonough, and we have a treat for you today. Welcome, Miss Kari Woodall. Thank you for carving out some time to join us today. I know you're deep in, and we'll get into this, into getting ready to open your brand new studio. So I'm excited to talk about that. But thank you for carving out time to join us today.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I was honored to be here.
Yeah. It's absolutely my pleasure. So before I dive into your extensive bio, the theme for today's topic, everyone, is going to be resilience and influence. Yes, an interesting combination, but in my opinion, there's no better person to talk about both of those topics. So I'll get the formalities out of the way. This is a long time friend and colleague in the industry. I was counting back. It's been about 13, almost 14 years since we first met, and the venue was TRX. Some amazing relationships in the industry began at that brand. And so your background, you are a previous U.S. national team swimmer, right? So that's kind of your athletic background. From there, you became a collegiate coach for the same sport that you competed in at a very high level. You're a TRX Master Trainer. You're currently a coach, personal trainer, a kick-ass mom of two amazing daughters, and the owner of Blaze, and a volunteer firefighter. That is very cool. So that's your background, but most importantly, you're a great friend and a great colleague. So again, thank you for choosing to join us today.
Thank you. I don't know about kick-ass mom, but I do have two amazing daughters. So they may disagree with you on that one.
Yeah, no, and they're both teenagers now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
One is a senior in high school, one's a freshman in high school.
Yeah, so that in itself will come with its interesting challenges, right? As they become teens, I would imagine.
I mean, interesting, frustrating.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Pick up your laundry. I already folded it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to first talk about, being a U.S. national team swimmer and coming from a very athletic background. At what point did, after your coaching days, did you want to transition into the quote unquote fitness industry? Was it a natural fit for you? Was it something that you thought you always wanted to do? Was there a point where you just kind of fell into it by design or default? I'm really curious.
It was sort of default.
Okay.
And I'll try it. Usually when I teach courses, if I deliver education, I usually try and do the short version of this, because I think it's important for people to know, like, who I was, why am I doing this right now? So I grew up as this competitive swimmer, trained and competed at a very high level, and trained with some of the best coaches, in the world, really. And I was always picking their brain. I'd be the one on the bus, sitting at the front of the bus, in Sicily, Italy. And, everybody's in the back, we're going to a meet and they're chatting, and I'm talking to the coach about, like, well, why do you coach this person like this? Or what are you doing? And I would watch how they were coaching, and I would say, why is he asking this girl if she's tired and what does she need? And there was a coach in particular, his name was Jim Richardson at University of Michigan, very, decorated coach. And he had this completely different approach than I had ever seen. He was very soft. And I actually thought, he's kind of soft with his athletes. And he coached women. And he would ask, hey, babe, how do you feel? Is your heart rate really at 140, or do you need to back off? And he started coaching by feel. And I could see him reading the girls. And, I was used to getting this. When I realized I wanted to coach was in college, it was like, well, I'm going to either go to law school or I'm going to coach. Let's try coaching. Those are kind of my.
You're going to make a lot more money coaching than you would as a lawyer.
Yeah, well, maybe it depends. So I ended up, coaching at University of North Carolina, which was my alma mater, because I really just liked explaining things and working with people, but I didn't have my own style at that point. It was sort of like I was doing this because that's all I knew. And I was not a very good coach when I first started by any means. And then I coached for 11 years. I was at Northwestern University, and then I was at University of Wisconsin, which is where I live now in Madison. And I was there for 7 years. And I got to the point where it was not a great environment for me as a coach. I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. I couldn't influence the environment the way I wanted to. And I also had 2 kids, and I wanted to raise them. And I wanted to create my own thing. So, my younger sister has a very big presence in the fitness industry. And she said, hey, come to this conference with me in Chicago. And I was like, and I really was kind of snobby about it. You don't know what you don't know. And I went, and the first session I took was TRX. And I was like, holy cow, I really don't know a lot of things. Rectus abdominis, what are you talking about? Like, what is this stuff? I knew the body and movement, but I didn't know I knew a lot of science in terms of heart rate, but I didn't know a lot of, like this muscle, this joint. I just knew, hey, move and feel like this. And I can explain things very well. So I ended up leaving and really diving in, and had always had this big fear that I was behind in the fitness industry. I was like, I'm an athlete, I'm a coach, I'm not in fitness. Well, really, everybody's just working with people. Everybody just wants someone to feel better through movement. And you're coaching, it doesn't matter what environment you're in. And that's where, my growth was creating my own, coaching identity. And I don't care if it's on a pool deck. Actually, I do. I don't want to be on a pool deck anymore, but I don't care if it's on a pool deck or if it's, at the firehouse, or if it's outside at a park. You're still working with people, and it's still the same goals. So, my evolution has sort of been through that. And there were a couple other things that led me to that along the way, but, this is, I think, where I should be.
It's really interesting that you bring that up, because at the end of the day, we are in the business of people and relationships. And, I think regardless of what we do as individuals, whether it's in our industry or any industry, you're managing people and you're managing relationships, right? And I think we both know you can, and it might have been Chris Frankel that said this, right? But it's you can be the smartest person in here, right? It's not what you know, it's what you can coach that matters. And I think I've seen people that are, just may have be, just amazing at dealing with people and have incredible results, right? Yeah. So sometimes, the best athletes don't make the best coaches, and other way around. So I find it really interesting that you bring that up when you talk about, at the end of the day, we're managing people, and your observation of sitting at the front of the bus and just wondering what made that particular coach tick, right? And I think based on my experience too, as I've grown older in my career, I'm a lot more curious than I was 10, 15 years ago, when I say I was more kind of ego driven than I am now. And I love that you kind of brought up, the more you know, the more you don't know. And that's a reality, I think. And so I think in our industry, whether it's a sports performance coach or a group fitness instructor or a personal trainer, the art is really understanding people, right? Yeah. And when you listen more, you understand need, right? And when you understand need, that's when you can truly help make an individual grow and develop. So I think that's really interesting that you brought that up. Wasn't on the agenda, but I love that you talked about the concept of we just deal with people, right? So I think, at the end of the day, every single one of us can write an hour-long program, right? We can create a class, we can put an exercise down on paper, but I think that's the easy part of our job, right? We can do that every day.
Yeah. Right? And, it's like I mentioned, like I kind of always had this fear when I entered this industry relatively late compared to many people. I started out in a different career, same ultimate goal. But, for me, it was like catching up on science that was boring to me before I actually had an application. Now it's like, I love it. But at the end of the day, the more I've learned, I realize I coach the same way. I just have a lot more in here to pull from. if I need to, but the way I'm speaking to people and the way I'm delivering my exercise programs is much more refined, but it's the same concept. I'm just telling people how I want them to feel. And that's the big way, that I coach. And, in terms of like coaching style or why I'm doing what I'm doing, it's because I want people, like, my whole goal, I don't care. You said it's like, you don't have to be a great athlete to be a great coach. You don't have to be it doesn't matter. My athletic background means nothing at this point in my life. It is what it is. I had a gift. I used it. It was fine, but it's not who I am. What I really want to do is to help people feel good. And if I can help, particularly, I work with a lot of high school women. If I can influence any part of their self-confidence or how they carry themselves through life for just that day, that's my passion. That's what I love.
Yeah. You talked about the word influence, which is something that I wanted to dive into today. Resilience and influence. I don't care what order we talk about it. But let's talk about influence. I know you and I have had many, many conversations around this whole concept of fitness influencer, the whole presence on social media, the amount of followers that someone have. And I think you and I come from the same opinion on this, is that, whether you have 100 followers or 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 followers, this whole word influence in our industry, I could have a whole discussion around this. And I think a lot of people, including myself, often, compare ourselves to how many followers someone else has or a brand that someone is representing. But, you've been very, very steadfast on your role in this industry. And I've watched it. I've watched you grow naturally. And you've always been concerned with the quality over the quantity. And I think it's really hard for those of us in the industry to try and stay focused on what we really need to do and not be distracted by the outside noise. So how have you been able to manage that? Because I know we've had fairly in-depth discussions, both, personally, when we've been in groups of people and online like this. And how have you been able to manage your growth in the industry and not be distracted by the noise?
That's a very deep question, Dan. So I'm going to try and give you a deep answer. So I'm pretty private.
Yep.
And you show people what you want them to see, and you don't show people what you don't want them to see. And that can be contrived, or that can be authentic.
Yeah.
And here's what I didn't like about college coaching. And there's a reason why I'm telling you this. I hated recruiting. I didn't like picking up the phone, calling a 17-year-old athlete and saying, hey, these are all the reasons you should come to my university, and selling somebody on an idea. And I get that you're talking about you and your skills and my coaching skills and all the other coaches on staff and the university and all these great things that you believe in. But to try and get someone to believe in what you believe in, like, I don't really like doing that. I like putting out, here's what I do, here's who I am. If you gravitate towards that, or if I'm an influencer to you, that's your choice, versus me telling you, I'm inviting you, right? And I'm only going to give you a little bit of an invitation to my life. I'm not the person that's ever going to throw up everything. I started a blog for a while, and it was all of these kind of like, do I say it? Do I not say it? And so I did a lot of like very elementary poetry, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
And and then I pulled back from that because I was like, I just think that's another layer I don't want to reveal. Influencer can be a derogatory term to some people. And I think for me, for a while, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Like, I tend, and in fact, you mentioned this on the phone the other day, like, you tend to kind of trend away from the trends. And you can do that on purpose just to kind of buck the system. Or it's just, I tend to trend a different way. And so it's not, I'm going to be different just to be different. I'm going to stomp dig my heels in the ground. That's not me. I just tend to not want to go that direction. And in terms of influencer, I'm influencing anyone I'm in contact with. At all times, they're influencing me. It's all of these concentric circles, and we're all interacting, whether it's, visual interaction, spoken interaction, just energy transfer. I mean, you're being influenced by the environment. You're influencing the environment. And so it's like influencer is a great term. It's true. We're all influencing and being influenced, whether it's algorithms or, or the rain and the gray in the sky. But I think what you do with the people you're with, and I know one of the things we mentioned was, like COVID and the pandemic, it's like all of a sudden you're with people on a screen. Well, how do you influence their day that way? That's going to be that's a different task, but you're still impacting these people, whether it's on social media with an outfit, that's not really my deal, or an exercise. And sometimes I even think like I stepped back for a while, like I pulled off of social media.
I know you did. Yeah.
Just months. I was like, I can't do it anymore. Cause then I started thinking like, why am I posting workouts of myself? Why do I think people want to see this? And even if they do want to see this, what's my motivation for putting it up? Do I want the dopamine hit from seeing a like? And then I think it just bothered me. I think didn't Simon Sinek do a whole talk about like that little dopamine hit you get when you get a text or a like, and it's like sugar, right? Or a drug. And I just didn't want that. And I just started to connect with more of my kids and my environment. And then I kind of eased my way back in, and I will pull back every now and then. And I don't know why it's not really a knee-jerk reaction. It's more just like, this doesn't really feel good to me, and I don't have a purpose. If I have a purpose for saying something, I will say it. If I am saying something to feel like I'm selling my soul or myself or like, that's not me.
Interesting. And so obviously you reemerged, right? You said you took your break from social media as a fitness professional. I know you're incredibly humble and you don't like to talk about yourself or sell yourself. That's always been something that I think I've had to, especially when we worked together at Under Armour. I brought you on the Under Armour training team. You were very uncomfortable with the part of the role of, hey, making a couple of posts a month. And some people have no problem with that. And I know that you felt uncomfortable with that. And you've obviously told us your why around that, but you've reemerged, right? And you're now back, you're very active on social media, and you post amazing content, and you move incredibly well, and your standards are really high. So what did you do in between when you took that break and then you reemerged? I think I know what you did between then and then reemerging, but what did you do for yourself that put you in a better position to put yourself back out there again?
So one of the things I had wanted to do for a while, and I think this is what where you're going, is I had some personal issues that, anxiety and just a lot of stuff I was coping with, and I wasn't coping with it so well a few years ago for a number of reasons. I got myself out of that environment, and a friend of mine invited me to this yoga class, and it was in this gorgeous studio in Madison. It's called Perennial. It's gorgeous, and you're looking at this natural prairie, which there are a lot of those in Wisconsin, prairie flowers, blah blah blah. And it was a way to connect with my body and my breath and the outside. And I wanted to be a yoga instructor just to learn more, so I could, feel like I wasn't a poser if I was giving some of these exercises and some of my workouts. And I just never understood the impact that taking yoga for me was going to have. This is like 180 degrees different. I was a sprinter. So I wasn't even like a distance swimmer that was kind of chill and low key. In fact, somebody told me once, one of the coaches I used to work with did ultra marathons, and he was like, Kari, no offense, but you'd never be able to do it because you could never focus long enough. I was like, I can zone out really well, But quick fire, and it's like, go. And that's actually, I'm good at that. And my body trends to that. And I don't like that. I don't like living in that environment. I don't like that in my body. I really like this, it's that flow state, right? I don't need the super high. I don't need to be super popular. I don't have to have a lot of, friends around me. I don't want to be low. I'm fine in between. Some people might call that floating. I call it flowing, so what I did was I took the opportunity because I could not find time as a mom and working mom to go through my yoga certification. I did an online certification, and those 3 months I was off social media, I was going through the certification, and it might be one of the best things I've ever done for myself. It's to get on with somebody like you, Dan, that's positive and just affirming and gentle and approachable. You don't always get that combination in someone, and energetic and knowledgeable. So I was eating up this education in this really nice, calm, positive, welcoming environment. I didn't feel dumb for not knowing things. I was actually afraid to ask questions because I don't like asking questions. But I did that. And I looked forward to the 6 hours of webinars every day. Look forward to that. It was time where I just really connected with myself and my breath, and my nervous system went shoo.
Interesting.
And I loved it.
So we could call that self-care, right? You took some time out for you for some self-care.
I would say self-care and self-awareness.
Yep.
I'm usually not, depends on who you talk to, I'm sure, but I don't think I'm low on self-awareness. It's usually so high that I'm much more like critical of myself. And I'm always being like, did I do that wrong? Did I say that wrong? But that can be debilitating as well. So much self-awareness can take you to a place where you're constantly figuring out what you did wrong instead of looking for the ease and the way things just are. Right. Yeah. So self-care and education. Like I'm actually in my 300 hour, partway through my 300 hour now. So I'll have 500 hours by the end of this year, which I'm proud of. I never would do that.
Yeah. So you've reemerged, you took time. So now let's call it the yin and the yang. So what skills have you brought to your daily coaching by putting yourself in that environment, by diving into yoga and mindfulness? Because, on my own personal experience, like hand up, right? I've got 15, 20 minutes to work out. The tendency is I'm going to go smash myself because I want that dopamine or that endorphin high, when sometimes the best thing that we actually probably need is to maybe just sit in silence or meditate or do a few yoga poses just to breathe and relax. What have you learned and been able to take from that time away into your current state now and working with your young athletes, specifically women? How has that helped you, fulfill your purpose more so now than ever in the past?
Great question. I think what I kind of evolved, and it's this kind of ongoing evolution, is I've always, like I mentioned, kind of tried to coach by feel. I try and encourage people, and particularly, I'll say women. Men are as self-critical as women, and I think women always get that, vibe. But like men as well, we all are. But I work with a lot of high school women, and I feel very, very passionate about, can I make this child, they're still children, but this young woman feel better about herself. And what athletes tend to do is perfectionism, right? And swimming is brutal. It's black and white. It's you either won by 100th of a second or you lost, right? And I was so sick of people judging based on a win or a loss or a first or a second or 100th of a second. I missed multiple U.S. national teams by 7/100ths of a second. Multiple times. I was like, what is it with the number 7? And your spirit goes from here to So what I did was I took those skills of breathing and self-awareness and slowing everything down. And I designed a class, actually, it was called Focus at the time. It's just a movement-based class. It's probably a little bit of animal flow, a little bit of yoga, a little bit of athletic movement. But what I did was I sequenced things so they couldn't judge, am I doing this right or wrong? Because it was things they had never done. It was just movement and flow. And we would put this kind of one, I called it add-on. We'd layer one movement and then repeat the movement and add one on, then repeat those two and add another one on. So by the end, all of the girls were moving and flowing and breathing in different movements. And there was no, you're lunging and your knees, valgus and your whatever. There was no judgment. It was just being outside and moving together, which was a huge component of what we needed to do because they couldn't be inside together at the time. There were no public gatherings at that time. And it was, they're out in the open on this huge outdoor basketball court, and moving and breathing together, and they were smiling. And that's like, I would take a video of them at the very end and be like, hey, I'm going to videotape you because you don't want them to be self-conscious. And, you just be in tears watching. In fact, I think I sent you one, didn't I? I think I texted you and sent you a video. I was like, Dan, look what these girls did today. For me, it was more like, let's get them to understand without me telling them. Be a perfectionist. I'm just going to show you how to enjoy movement. You can teach people how to breathe and enjoy movement. Then, it becomes less about the reps and the max and that's fine if that's your goal, but they have enough that they're doing that's hard and for me to be able to complement it with something hard but sneaky hard, I call it, where they don't even know. And by the end, they're like, holy cow, my arms are tired. Well, great. Was that fun? Yeah. Can we put that to music next time? Great. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I just pulled those concepts into my practice more and more in the beginning, mindfulness beginning, mindfulness in the end. And I take 5 minutes at the end of my workouts. It's like, hey, we're going to do some meditation. Maybe it's in pigeon, maybe it's on the straps, maybe it's whatever, but we're going to do it. And this is as important. And I will, reiterate, this is as important as anything else you're going to do, because we're going to reset everything right now and get your homeostasis where you can survive today.
Yeah. And I love that a big focus for you is trying to mold and shape the future of these young athletes and being an amazing role model. I think that's something that I regret not doing, is spending more time in that area. But now, especially as a parent, even though Finn is only like 14 months old, my perception has completely changed on how I want to be able to influence his life. And so I commend you on being able to learn and grow and evolve and understand that there is parts of that whole kind of mindfulness and mind-body world that we can bring into any athlete's journey. Love the concept that you said of sometimes we have to slow down to speed up. Sometimes we have to slow down to move ahead. And I know when I was a younger athlete, those concepts were certainly not even on my radar. It was like, harder is better. And if I'm not training and someone is sleeping, well, then I'm winning. Right. And that's
what it was. And unfortunately, that's still the mentality in a lot of places.
Yeah.
One thing I remember when we were at Under Armour, I think TA, a friend of ours, asked, what's the biggest thing you guys are working on right now? Which I think I can say, because it's no big shock for anybody when they say mindfulness. Yeah. We're throwing all of our research into this, and hopefully I'm not going to get in trouble from Under Armour, but it's just like, well, of course, because if athletes don't feel good about themselves, and if they're not getting rest and blah, 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 all these things, then it doesn't matter what shoe they're wearing,
It doesn't.
It doesn't. And if you don't feel good about yourself, it doesn't matter how much money you make in your job. And if you don't feel good about yourself, then this relationship is going to go to this. You said, I'm going to influence Finn. Well, guess what? You doing that with your son, Finn's going to influence his friends and his friends and it's this, and I get goosebumps talking about this stuff. It's this trickle down effect. It's the ripple.
Absolutely. It is. Absolutely it is. Yeah.
You work with the people in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, right. It's like, if we can't move our bodies free from pain, as you said, it doesn't matter, whatever shirt I wear on my back, what shoes I have, it's not going to make it any better. That's the reality, right? So, but it's amazing how powerful this whole concept of personal belief and connecting with your body and listening to your body. When I did a VertiMax VIVE with Dr. Mark Chang, he said something pretty profound, is that most athletes grow up, being taught to mute what their bodies are actually telling them, right? You're getting all these red lights and red flags going, I shouldn't be doing this because my back hurts, my shoulder hurts. And we're taught not to listen to that, right? We're taught to just power through because harder is better. So, I love that there's more people out there like you and Mark that are bringing that concept through to the younger generation, saying it's okay to take a rest today if that's what your body's actually telling you. But if, as coaches and trainers, if we don't listen and are truly listening, we might miss that they're actually trying to tell us that, right? And
it's empowering for an athlete to be able to make a choice. I had a coach I saw a couple of years ago when my daughter was playing a particular sport, and the coach called every single play, and girls were turning and looking. It's like, what do I do? Which foot do I step? Which hand do I? And it was just like, there's no instinct in that. And then there's no trust in themselves. And then what happens when you're not there? A good coach, your athletes should be self-sufficient. And there's a lot of ownership in coaching, and there are a lot of coaches who want the ownership and want, the accolades, and it's like ego driven, just like any job. I mean, you see it a lot in coaching. And then there are coaches where it's like, like Dr. Chang said, it's just like, it's not better to push through the pain and ignore your body. You're not teaching yourself to trust yourself. And 2 years ago, when I actually had a studio, I was working with a group of high school girls, and the freshmen and it was all a TRX class, and it was kind of this rows of TRXs. Okay. Well, the seniors would always go in the front. Seniors would go in the second row, the sophomores, and then the freshmen were in the back. And so sometimes I would just walk to the back of the room, and I would coach from the back of the room, and everyone would have to flip around, and I'd be like, the back's the new front now. And so now you guys are in the front, you got to be leaders, right? Well, one particular day we were doing a choice at the end of the workout. I said, hey, you guys have your choice of finishing with this 6 max effort planks for only 10 seconds. Like we teach all that stuff, right? There's some science behind that. You can do 6 of these, or you can stretch. What's your choice? I don't care. I want you to understand there's no right or wrong. What does your body feel like right now? Do you want that extra push? Or do you feel like, gosh, this was a really hard workout, which it was, and I need to be able to stretch? And I gave them a stretch to go into, so they had something to do. And a couple of the freshmen took their feet out of the straps. This was in the TRXs. And the seniors at the front of the room all went. And they turned around, they whipped their head around to the back. All the freshmen promptly put their feet back in the straps and did the planks.
Really?
And I said at the end, now raise your hand if you really wanted to do those. And then, everybody raised their hand. And I said, now the people who didn't really want to do those, can you show me who your hands are? Because there's no peer pressure here. Well, I didn't really want to do them. I said, okay, here's what I need you to understand. Your body is your body. Your body is not the senior in the front. They've been through this for 4 years. You haven't. So you have to start trusting your body, and your teammates have to start trusting you, that you're going to give your effort when you have that in you at all times. And then when you need a break, you need to be able to take a break. So like, I know that's kind of a long-winded way of just saying there's a way to teach young athletes and young women and people at all ages. I mean, I coach my parents, they're in their 80s.
I love that.
I still have to teach them to listen to their bodies. You're always need to be reminded. Your choices are your choices, not what the influence around you is, right?
So true. I want to backtrack to a question that came through. How do you see things changing in the future with social media and impacting an athlete's journey for the better?
Well, I think we just saw something at the Olympics.
Yeah.
It's going to start to change things, right? When you see an elite athlete make a very strong choice to listen to her body, and that went viral, of course. I mean, it's a broadcast across the globe already, but the amount of positive attention that got, I think that was a huge wave to start the ripple for female athletes and hopefully male athletes. But and I don't want to really pigeonhole this. And I know your question is about an athlete's journey. And I think social media will maybe start to trend towards what feels good. But I think just this is like a global people issue. Make the choices in your life, not just your workouts, that work for you. And it might not work for the person next to you, and they might not understand it, and they might not disagree, and they might disagree with it. And it might actually not affect them very well, right? You might not win a medal for the team. And is that selfish, or is that selfless? Because you're doing something for you.
That's a great call, and it was amazing how, I think for the most part, that was a very positive thing, but there was still this polarization on the expectation of that athlete. Like, you've been chosen to be on the team, harden the F up, get over it, because there's someone that would love to be in your place. And I was like, no, I'm putting my foot down, right? Yeah. Because she needs to think of the rest of her life.
Look at the way those athletes train. It's a grind. These athletes, men, women, they are not afraid of hard work. They have been through more than you can imagine since they were 5, probably, right? I started training as a swimmer when I was 5. I went through workouts. Now I look back, I'm like, how the hell did I do that? And then get back up 8 hours later and do it again, and do it again 5 hours later. Swimmers do doubles. And it was just, and then you lift on top of that. And it was just like 3 workouts a day. And it was like, you're broken. And I was never afraid of hard work. But now I just make the choices that work better for here. And if I'm on a team, I'm going to give you everything I've got. And maybe that was everything she had. If you question that, I don't know her personally, but I know what I saw. To loop back to the question about social media and influencing young athletes, unfortunately, they're on social media constantly. And they're being influenced by what they swipe, and then by what the algorithm shows them to swipe again and again and again. So you're in this loop. The only way to get out of the loop, or the matrix, or whatever people call it, the hamster wheel, right? The only way to get out of it is to just have face-to-face interaction. And so this is where I think social media needs to not be the primary source of information for anyone. It needs to be human interaction or with nature, And so it's like your actual physical coaches and teammates in front of you. You can't control what they're seeing. You can't control what their influences were before they came to see you. But at least it's human interaction, which is much more realistic than a swipe. Well, I didn't like that post, so I'm going to go to the next one. Or I didn't like that outfit, so I'm not going to watch that. Or, I don't like that brand, or, or that athlete last time was kind of whatever, like, I didn't like her spike, or whatever it is. Like, it's like whichever way the wind blows sometimes with social media, which is what I abhor about social media.
I understand.
But anyway, so I think human interaction will hopefully always supersede the swipe. However, we have a lot of good we can do with social media. A lot. A huge platform. A huge platform. So do some good.
For any young female or female in our industry who's looking to stay on course, or someone who's looking to, kind of go into our industry, based on everything that you've experienced as an athlete and a trainer and an educator, what's some words of advice you could say to any young female or female in general who's watching right now or may digest this podcast later on? Drop it for me.
Yeah. This is a little cliche, but I was always worried about growing up, and this is how I was raised. What would the neighbors think? Okay. And then you start to think, not for yourself, but you start to think I am what you would call a classic codependent. I'm a people pleaser. I don't want anybody to be upset. I don't want problems. And I'll do what is going to be best for everybody else. And that's the way you run into slamming yourself into the ground, because then you're not meeting your own needs. You're trying to meet everyone else's needs. Yeah. And you sell yourself out. And it's not admirable. And I always thought it was admirable. And the phrase like, be you, was always kind of like, fine. What does that mean? Like it sounded egocentric, but be you. Don't do things for the good of others and for the good of yourself. And don't worry so much about what the neighbors think. If you're a good human, and I tell my kids all the time, I don't care what mistakes you make. Are you a good person? Are you a nice person? You're going to make mistakes. Are you a good friend? Are you kind? But also stand up for yourself. And so just do not worry about what you think someone else wants you to be. Be what you want to be, and start doing that now. And the more positive female mentors we have, for female athletes in particular, which is your question, the more opportunity. It is a gift, and it is an opportunity every time I step in a room with 25 girls. That is a gift, and I don't take that lightly.
Absolutely, that is. I feel the same, that whenever I teach a class or teach a course, like I'm always scared that no one's going to show up, right? And I still have that fear today. And is it because I care? Yeah, I think so. But to your point, it's like, this is a privilege. It's not a right. And I think in our roles as coaches and trainers and instructors, it is a privilege, because there's always someone that will gladly take our place, right? So I think what allows me to keep doing what I do is that knowing that to be more curious, right? And I need to be more open to learning and know that it can be taken away from me at any moment. And I try to never take that for granted. Great question just came in. How do you start teaching a young athlete to distinguish between the pain that may come from training and learning to listening to your body? That's a great question.
So I let them make mistakes. First of all, I am very, very particular about training with, and very precise form to get people started. Okay. So I want people to listen to their bodies. I want them to move freely, but I also want them to understand like, where's their home base. Right. And I didn't come up with that concept myself. It's pretty prevalent throughout the fitness industry to set a standard. You set the standard so they understand like, this is the home base. This shouldn't hurt. And if it does, here's a way to correct it. So I know some things that might happen. So in an unloaded environment, I may let people make a mistake and say, you see how that feels? So unloaded meaning they're not, load bearing with weight, because it's a little safer way to learn. So hey, do you see what's happening with your knee? Do this, or what's happening with your hip, your back, blah, blah, blah. Teach them that didn't feel good. Did that not feel good here? Okay, right. If that doesn't feel good here, here's how you want to feel. So what I do is I do a lot of positive reinforcement of, hey, how does this feel? Do you feel like you can get a little taller? Do you feel like your body can get a little more connected? And I talk a lot about connection. And so I'm trying to give them the tools to self-correct. Because then if they tell me I need a break, or I'm not going to do those 6 planks, I let them have options. Do you need to stop and reset and start again? I don't care if you do all 16 reps at once. How can you do 16 sets of 1? And I stole that from somebody too. It might've been Chris. I don't know. So it's more like, listen to your body, trust your body, know what it feels like when it feels good. So when it doesn't feel good, you're pretty confident in, hey, I need help. And I tell them this is a very open forum. When I'm talking, you're listening, but when we're doing our workout, you talk, because I need to hear from you and I need to know, how you're feeling. And if you're not quite sure, then that tells me you should be asking me a question.
I love that strategy, right? Because back in the day, right? Like this whole concept of no pain, no gain. Well, that's the furthest from the truth, right? Right.
Absolutely.
And I think if we can help them distinguish between good pain and bad pain, right? And I think
give them a way to self-correct. If they got some sort of pain, give them a way to self-correct. Yeah. And then if they still have the pain, or maybe it's after the workout or whatever, and I'm not a physical therapist. I'm not a chiropractor. I'm very clear about like, hey, I can help you with these things, but here's where you need to go. You need to go talk to somebody about this. That's outside my, education.
Yeah. Well, and I think as coaches and trainers and instructors, if someone is experiencing pain and they stop, right? It's how do we communicate that with them, right? No, I need you to put, like, if we teach them to listen to their bodies and they choose, you know what, coach, I can't finish the last 10 or 15 minutes because of this. We need to praise them for making that positive decision, not making them feel bad that you're weak which is the generation that I certainly grew up in. And I know that still happens out there, but I think there has been a shift on letting people know that sometimes less is better and that harder is not better. And
I think absolutely. And what you said, is praising them. Like, absolutely, Dan. I say that all the time, and I'm so glad you said that. When an athlete stops a rep and restarts because they felt something that wasn't right, I will praise the out of that. I will be like, I love that. I love that you just did that, because you know what? You've got good body awareness. Good for you for learning. And then it takes the shift off of the group to shame that person for stopping. Because I say stop as long as you need to, and then start as soon as you can.
I love that.
And then you let them have that choice.
Repeat that again. We need to drop that in. Stop
as long as you need to, but then start as soon as you can, because then it's their choice to stop, their choice when to start, but with some expectation, with some parameters, right?
Yeah, sure. 100%.
And they will never sit and do nothing. They don't want to do nothing. They wouldn't be there in the first place, at least not the kids I'm working with.
Quote of the day.
And praise them for self-awareness. And I'll say that means your body's learning. It's those neural, it's those patterns. You can't groove the right movement patterns without stopping and restarting. It's just like mindfulness. You get off track. Oh, you get back on track. It's a win for realizing you were off track, right?
No, that's amazing. Mic drop on that quote. Boom. I love that one. See, and this is my whole point I talked about earlier is that you can always learn. Every single day is a learning environment if you open yourself up to learning. And I think that does that come with age and experience? I would argue to say yes, right? You kind of have to go through that in your journey as a coach and a trainer, as an instructor. But I think if we want to have a long career in this industry, passion and purpose will only take you so far. I think it's your ability to be open to learning, open to new ideas, and being able to change course, to do what you need to do to make the difference that you want to make. We could probably sit here for another hour and talk about this stuff, right? We're kind of already approaching the over the time mark, but this has been absolutely amazing. And I approached this chat with you, Kari, just resilience and influence, right? That was kind of the general umbrella. And I think that we've certainly dove in there. The one big thing for me under the bucket of resilience that I got from you was sometimes it's okay to step back to go forward, right? To invest in yourself so you can take care of others, right? And when you can take care of yourself, you inherently become more resilient, right? The definition of resilient is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, right? But if you take care of yourself and invest in yourself, your ability to give to others will certainly go up, right? That's kind of what I'm getting from your experience and your journey. And then under this whole concept of influence is that, I think you and I can agree that, focus on the greatest need, and that greatest need is what's in front of you today, right now. The people that you have human interaction with, not the people on social media who you don't even know who they are and you've never actually met them, right? Why are we wasting our precious time and energy on trying to please people or influence people that we don't even know and might never meet, right? Right. So I love the fact that you just focus on making a difference every day with the people in front of you, right? And if you influence one young female athlete to make better informed decisions for the rest of their life, then how amazing of influence is that, right? That's incredible. That's incredible, right? So I think for all of us who are on this call, and those of you who may watch this later, no matter what your role in our industry is, focus on the greatest need, and that's the people that are right in front of you every single day. Be in the moment, be there for them, and listen, right? Listen more, because if you listen more, you can understand need. And when you understand need, you can have a massive impact. That's what I'm taking away from my conversation with you, Kari.
I'm glad. I feel very proud right now that you summarized that so well.
Oh, no, absolutely. And so
it is definitely who's in front of you, and it's, you are, I think it's kind of twofold. It's like you are influencing, but you are also, and you've said this before, it's who are you surrounding yourself with, right?
100%.
So who are you choosing to be around and allowing yourself to be influenced by as well. And I should say, like, I have, I don't know if I have a lot of followers or not a lot of followers on social media. I don't know really, I don't have tons, but there are some people who truly, want to engage with you because they want to learn. And that's a great opportunity as well. So I'm not saying, social media is all awful, because it's got its purpose.
Absolutely.
For example, things like this, right? This is social
100%.
media. So it is what it is, but it's what you do with what you've got in front of you. And sometimes it's a screen, and sometimes it's how you reply to someone, or sometimes it's not replying to someone, right? Or unfollowing or following, or, I never consider myself a leader. I just don't. I don't know why. I don't like that concept. There are many leaders, and I'm like, no, I don't. I'll hide in the back, But I think what you put out there, if people do consider you a leader, which I think is a big, role, I have to embody who I really am, and not put on a mask, and not walk around in disguise, the wolf in sheep's clothing or whatever. Like that for me is like everything I'm against. And like, I am who I am. And, I said before, it was like, what do the neighbors think? Like, I don't care anymore. I don't care if you like what I post. I don't care if you don't. I don't care if you, like my exercises. I don't care. I care about, am I a good human being to you? And if I'm not, then you don't know me very well.
Yeah. 100%, Kari. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're busy because you're opening a brand new studio. You're diving in, you're taking risk to have a bigger influence on the athletes that you work with on a daily basis. So congratulations on your upcoming opening of Blaze in Wisconsin. So thank you very much for spending your time with us today. For those of you who tuned in, and those of you who'll be watching this later, some valuable lessons came out today. Just be who you are, focus on the greatest need, be open to learning. Self-care is important, because if you take care of you, you can take care of others around you. So embrace that circle of trust that every single one of you have. So thank you so much for joining us today, Kari. And thank you for tuning in once again to another edition of VertiMax VIVE. My name is Dan McDonough, and we hope to see you again soon. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.